And hello everyone, welcome to CCW TV, the Comic Culture Warrior video channel. I am Elliot Serrano, this is Jose Melendez coming to you from Dreamland Comics in Schaumburg, Illinois. Thank you for joining us for another round of discussions about comics, comic culture, and the industry. Some of you out there are going, hey, what happened? Where have you guys been? We didn't see a new video for like a whole week. What happened? Well, if you're thinking that, it's because you have not been checking out the CCW TV blog, where the last series of segments, due to a technical problem that we had last week recording, were turned into our very first podcasts. So if you go to the CCW TV blog, you can actually download the last three segments that we did in podcast form, pure audio. You can download them, put them on your MP3 player, listen to them wherever you want. Listen to me talking about how I want to be Jose, you know, which was pretty big. That was huge.
Yeah, and pretty sad, too.
And for those who checked out the CCW TV blog, there was a lot of conversation surrounding those podcasts going on. So, again, it's like the whole thing. You're not getting the full experience of this show if you're not checking out the blog. We can't say that enough. So, let's leave it at that. Otherwise, we do have a couple topics that we want to rant about, some books that we want to review, and a couple that we want to rave about, so why don't we just jump into that. First up, from Dark Horse Comics, The Guild, #1, written by Felicia Day, who we around here all love, with art by Jim Rugg. And for those who don't know what The Guild is the show that Felicia Day has online. If you go to Watch the Guild.
Writer, producer, and director.
Go to watchtheguild.com and you can see her show. It's not too dissimilar to a lot of other web shows. Each episode is like 7 to 8 minutes long, tops, and it revolves around the kind of the happenings with Felicia Day and the Knights of Good, or, well, her character and the Knights of Good, a bunch of gamers who just seem to feel a little more comfortable in the gaming world, in a sort of World of Warcraft type game than they do in the real world. They gently poke fun at gamers, and even last season, Will Wheaton showed up as kind of an evil gamer, which was a lot of fun. Will Wheaton's been showing up everywhere, doing kind of like a dark version of himself. So you really should be checking that out. But if you haven't been watching The Guild, if you pick up this comic book, it's kind of a nice little intro. This is a prequel to the series. It talks about how Felicia Day's character kind of met all these folks that she interacts with on the TV show. And Jim Rugg does a nice job of capturing the likeness of, her likeness and the likenesses, really. Excuse me. Of the other characters in the show. But if you read the first issue, it mostly revolves around Codex. That's her character. Mm-hmm. And we get to learn a lot more about her personal life and what life was like for her before she met the Guild. A couple things that I really liked about this book was the, of course, the kind of the self-deprecating humor that Felicia Day has.
Yes.
There's a scene where she's talking to her therapist, and the therapist says, well, maybe you should look at medication, to kind of help manage your moods and your depression. Mm-hmm. And she goes, I don't want to be like, vomiting while I'm sitting on the toilet. And there's a picture of her covered in vomit as she's sitting on a toilet. Not that sexy, but funny within the context of the story. And it's really something when you can have a woman who can be both very endearing and comical and kind of poke fun at herself that way.
Are you coddling women creators again, Elliot?
Well, you know what? Because women creators need us. Women creators, I've been told that women creators are lesser than other creators,
yeah.
So I need to protect them.
Yeah, I guess so.
So that's
right?
probably what it is. By the way, are you... You don't coddle Marvel Comics, though, do you?
No.
Not to go on a tangent, but anyway.
Not even close.
I like this book, though. Dark Horse put the first 6 pages up for preview online, and you were able to, read it then. And if you didn't really care for it then, it gave you a nice taste of what the book would be like. Then you didn't have to pick it up. But even beyond the preview, you got more story when you picked up the actual book itself. Mm-hmm. And of course, Felicia Day has fun with the whole thing about being a woman in kind of a boy's world. Even when her first experience going into gaming, into the world of gaming, she encounters a couple other guys who act like some, typical macho gamer dudes. So, I say it's a fun book. If you enjoy the Guild, if you wanted to get into it, I say pick it up and give it a shot. The only thing that, again, is going to turn people off is because, well, it's created by a woman, and everyone knows women can't write books as well as men. So
yeah, well, I'm kind of, I don't know. It was a really good read, and I was just kind of impressed that Felicia Day, she's actually a good writer. She writes the Guild, and she's written some other stuff. But the fact that this comic, it comes off as being very well written. It's like she has written comics before. I don't know if she has.
I think she's done some web stuff in the past. But yeah, this is a well-written comic. We were talking about that with the last series of segments, comparing American Vampire. Mm-hmm. When Stephen King wrote his backup feature in American Vampire, it wasn't done as well, as a Steven Snyder story.
Right.
Because Snyder came across as more of an experience. I'm sorry, Scott Snyder came across. Oh, by the way, Scott, you're welcome for the review. Scott Snyder really is an experienced comic book writer, where Stephen King is not, and you could see how one story just came across as stronger than the other. Mm-hmm. This came across as Felicia Day really understood what happens in comic books and how to format a comic book.
Yeah,
I'm sure she probably got some help, but still.
Well, yeah, I mean, it kind of helps that she knows Joss Whedon, and Joss probably,
yeah.
and the editors at Dark Horse probably. But I don't know. It was just, and I'm a huge fan of self-deprecating humor, so I obviously love this book, just for that alone. But I don't know. It was funny. It was interesting, and I don't know. I thought it was well done. The only thing that people who buy mainstream comics mostly might have a problem with the art. It's a very alternative fiction-looking book.
Right.
But I didn't have a problem with it at all. I thought the art was pretty good, and it suited the story very well. And I don't know.
This is kind of,
awesome Carrie Nord cover.
Oh, yeah. Great Carrie Nord cover. And this is kind of what we really would have liked to have seen more with girl comics, which was what happened in our last video segment. So, anyway, the Guild, pretty good. We enjoyed it.
Very good. I would say pretty good.
Now, this book, Jose did talk about on the blog. You made it part of your capsule reviews, and everyone's been asking for us to talk about this on the video segment. So let's make sure we talk about it. Nemesis #1 from the Marvel Icon line, with script by Mark Niven and art chores by Mark Miller. God bless it, I can't get anything straight these past couple weeks. And Steve McNiven on art chores. What was the premise of this? What if Batman were the Joker, or what if Batman were just the world's only... What if he was a villain? A villain.
What if Batman was a villain, but he's the only villain? He's
the only villain in the world. Which is... I don't know. It's kind of an interesting concept, because whenever you have a movie being made about a superhero, like the Batman movies, the Superman movies, they always tend to be the only hero in that world. Mm-hmm. So we are just so accustomed to the idea of worlds populated by superheroes and supervillains, to have just a solo hero or a solo villain in the world, seems like an obvious thing to follow. Nemesis here is just, he's like a super smart genius type sociopath who travels from city to city, country to country, to challenge the most brilliant police commissioner of that particular city, and will send them a little card stating when they're going to die. He just sends a card to that commissioner and goes, "You will die, bam, this is the time, da-da-da," and then the game starts from there. So when we first pick up with Nemesis #1, we see the end of Nemesis's Again, I can't conjugate for anything. His confrontation with the Tokyo police commissioner, and now he's going to move on to the Washington, D.C. police commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see. I wanted to ask this. Now, this is issue 1, and here it says Part 1, Nemesis Part 1. Is this going to be Part 1 of, like, let's say, a trilogy or whatever? Like
probably. Well, Kick-Ass was Part 1.
Part 1? So Nemesis will more than likely be another part? Here's the thing.
Well, likely.
Because if it says Nemesis Part 1 on this book, you already know how this book how the series is going to end.
Right.
You know, you kind of like, it only can end one way.
Well, it could end 2 ways. 1, Nemesis could kill the Commissioner, or 2, the Commissioner could kill Nemesis and become a new Nemesis.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's a little bit too clever for Mark Millar to do that, so
yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either. I can already tell you right now that it'll more than likely end up with Nemesis killing this police commissioner, and book 2 will be the introduction of the hero in the Nemesis universe. Just like Kick-Ass ended with, Kick-Ass introducing heroes, and then the villains were introduced at the end of Kick-Ass. So
very clever.
So, I mean, these are like mirroring each other. Yeah. I'll say this. There are only 2 things about this book that are, to me, particularly outstanding. Okay?
That I was in color, and that I was in English.
That it was $2.99.
Yeah, it was $2.99.
Okay, $2.99. McNiven's art is actually pretty good in this.
It's pretty terrible.
I liked. It was not what I was expecting. This is, I will say, and I know you're not a fan of McNiven's art, but I'm going to tell you right now, his storytelling and layouts in this book are way better than anything he did in Civil War. Way better than anything he did in Civil War. This, anyone, and maybe it's because they were kind of making this book for non-traditional comic readers, so it's easier for the eye to follow what's happening in the story.
Well, this is the layouts of Ultimates. That's how Ultimates was laid out. It's the same way. Just
it's because
widescreen panels. And
it's probably because that's probably the way Mark Millar wrote it. Because that's the way he tends to write. He probably pulled the same template from his Ultimate script and popped in, Nemesis. But that was the thing. And this book, while somewhat gratuitous in its violence, was not nearly as gratuitous as Kick-Ass.
Well, not yet. It's the first issue, dude.
Well, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe he wants to play. Millar is playing more towards McNiven's strengths, which are, nice, clean lines, layouts, and stuff. Action.
I like the fact that this book couldn't get 3 pages without ripping off a scene from The Dark Knight.
Oh yeah, no, this book is filled with rip-offs. This book, and someone commented to me online just the other day. He stole a scene from Last Crusade. Okay, and this is I'm going to tell you right now.
This book is so unoriginal. It just takes stuff from other things and throws them all in there. Is a big mishmash.
I know. But
then the kicker was the fucking afterword.
Oh yeah, the afterword.
My god.
We'll get to that. Here's my nerd nitpick about this book, outside of everything else. My nerd nitpick, and spoiler. If you haven't read this, stop but this is so ridiculous. Okay. Nemesis is hijacking Air Force One. Somehow he manages to get the fighter escort to blow up. I mean, it's not because I don't know if he's got missiles or whatever. And he's on the fucking windshield of the plane. And he's not even like wearing like equipment to help him breathe or anything, because if this guy is just Batman, it should be really physically impossible for someone to pull this stunt off without any real equipment. If you did this with Batman in a Batman comic book, people would call bullshit on you. Okay? But this
we don't really know we only know that Mark Millar said that he is the Batman, but we don't know the extent of Nemesis's powers, if he even has any, or if he's just... But yeah, from everything that I know, he's just supposed to be a normal guy who's a super genius.
Yeah. And then he does a bit, and this is where he lifts a whole bit from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where he flies Air Force One into a tunnel, shearing the wings off, and the fuselage of Air Force One continues through the tunnel. Has to kill some poor lady and her innocent child who just happened to be standing in front of a petroleum truck.
It was so ridiculous.
It's like, man, the body count on this thing, and then it ends with Nemesis.
The cool splash page with the with a really hip one-liner that every Mark Millar comic has to end on.
Yeah. It's time you hailed your new fucking chief. So, getting to the afterword, Mark Millar does this whole thing where he thanks the fans for buying the book because he knows that this isn't a Superman book or a Batman book or anything like that. Mark Millar is essentially thanking the fanboys for supporting him and letting him create this. Okay? Now,
the thing that gets me, though, is, like, at the beginning is, like, you've never seen anything like this. This is a brand new, fresh idea. It's like, dude, you compared it to Batman so many fucking times. This has to be very tongue-in-cheek.
I would hope so, because this character is essentially Batman, but without the
ears.
The ears, and he's white. I mean, there's nothing really compelling or creative about this character, except that he is a mishmash of all these other archetypes.
And the comic is a mishmash of scenes from other comics and
movies. From all
movies.
other comics and movies. So, for those who are saying, this is a great thing, now, I will say what impresses me. I said there were two things that impressed me about this. I said it was kind of the artwork and the price. I'll add one more thing. The promotion, the self-promotion of this.
Well, you've already discussed this numerous times.
If this book sells enough that it breaks the top 20, my hat's off to Mark Millar. My hat's off to him. Because then you have essentially shown anyone with a good enough self-marketing machine can do this.
Can sell any piece of shit that
can
they want.
Pretty much sell almost anything. Yeah. Almost anything. And on top of that, you'll have people defending it, too.
No, I'm sure that they are.
Because I haven't read
people were defending throwing babies out of windows, for crying out loud. It shouldn't be too hard to defend this one.
Yeah, I know. Someone on our board talked about how us complaining about the baby being thrown out a window made them want to go out and buy the book. So, hey. Hey, if you like it, I'll say this. I already like this book more than Kick-Ass, but that's just the first book, and I had kind of low expectations. So, and it's only because I really expect a hell of a lot more from Mark Millar as a writer and as a creator, and Steve McNiven as creators. This is They are doing this for free. They didn't get anything up front. They want to be able to own the character. They're already talking about making this one into a movie. But I'm sorry, if ownership means owning stuff that's derivative, I don't know. I don't even know if it's really all that worth it.
Yeah.
So. Let's end this there. When we come back, we have a couple more reviews, and we certainly have a couple rants we want to get into. We hope to see you then.